Ladies and gentlemen, this is a special episode. Pernell, your astrotherapist here, helping you to alleviate suffering while leveraging astrology. And this is the prime example. First and foremost, shout out to the 17 victims, if not more, when it comes to Jeffrey Dahmer and the wildness that I look to hope to break down. I want to say up front and foremost, nothing that I do say today is a representation of defending the actions or even the character of Jeffrey Dahmer himself. It is a simple, raw, objective outlook on what does this chart show. How do you create a monster, okay? How do you literally reincarnate as a monster? Quite frankly, his chart is dripping and oozing with power, status, and fame, okay? Through acts of heinous sexual and painful and traumatic encounters, all right? Possessiveness. And as you see, I'm going to help you understand why and how did Jeffrey Dahmer himself become glorified. How in the court system and his run-ins with the law did he seem to be so lucky, as if nothing can ever go wrong, no matter if he was doing the most heinous of crimes. All right. So the first thing that sticks out is actually the fact that he has an 8th house stellium. Right. 8th house is the house of death. So, you know, we hear about it often. It is the house of sex, it is the house of transformation, it is the house of rebirth. But not many times do we see situations where death is actually something in a physical manner rather than the metaphysical, which the 8th house can often very easily present to us in astrology. A lot of metaphysical deaths. And I do believe that Jeffrey Dahmer himself went through a lot of transformations, especially psychological transformations, which again could be kind of 8th house and death rebirth processes in different stages of his life. You look at some of the beginnings with the animals and the taxidermy, and it was really some of the beginnings of some of the foundations of death, right? When I think foundation, before the family and Cancer, you have Taurus. So he has a Venus and Taurus in the 8th house. So this will literally say that he legit values nature, animals, okay, and the death of them, understanding the natural process of death and rebirth, or even just the natural process of death, which is very natural. Taurus is a natural sign, so this is a natural thing for him off the rip. Now, what makes this unique, if you look at Nikola Stojanovic's work and the degree point theory, this is the 22nd degree. He mentions very clearly it's one of the malefic degrees, and essentially homicide happens at 22 degrees. And he has a very famous podcast, Nikola Stojanovic, with the degree point theory and Astrology, talking about how the 22nd degree is the degree of homicide. So when we take Venus, it sure is this lush and plush, very pleasurable, sensual planet. Yet Venus is not just these things. First off, there's a duality to it, being Libra as well as what? Taurus. So this is going to matter because Jeffrey Dahmer is a Libra rising, all right, and he's a Libra rising at the 19th degree. So Libra rising at the degree and a higher consciousness of Libra, which means what? Him himself, his rising sign, has to abide by him himself, his personality, his understanding of himself, and more. How he instinctually, and I say instinctual because the rising sign is like Aryan in a way, right? So it's like from 0 to 2 years old, how he instinctually decides to be himself, has to go back into the ruler, which is Venus. So his Venus is in the 22nd degree, homicide, but it's also in Taurus, sensual. So now you could say a sensual homicide. If you've seen the Netflix with Jeffrey Dahmer Netflix, okay, now you add an 8th degree, a sensual homicide that is pretty much surrounded by death. Death for Jeffrey Dahmer is natural, and sex and hedonism, which is also Taurus in its lower energies, especially if it has not evolved in consciousness, it will present what we see. Notice sexual relations were always a part of, let's say, if I try to speak about it from Jeffrey Dahmer's perspective, a part of his art, a part of his craft. Now, why do I say that? Art and craft, in the learning of it, the learning of death, learning is Gemini, and it's well known that he is a Gemini sun at 0 degrees. So 0 degrees is just a strengthening of Gemini, this duality, this flow, if you will, creativity, art, learning, but he has it in the 8th house, which is learning about death. And you've seen this with the taxidermy, when his father is helping him kill roadkill, how to cut them open. This sparked his interest. Now, Geminis are very much known for always shifting their interest and continuously moving them forward and on. But it's much like a Gemini in marriage. People will think that there only could be cheaters, or they only could be these fluid people in relationships. But if a Gemini finds the one, they stick with it. And this is the shadow of Gemini, which is what? Sagittarius. So if you look at his Sagittarius, one of the next malefic degrees in astrology is the 18th degree. Now in the Placidus system, which is what I study, all right, Jeffrey Dahmer has Sagittarius in the 3rd house. Sagittarius is a very dogmatic and religious sign. So in his early learnings, when he's 7 years old or so, he saw the dogmatic approach with his parents and their dynamic. He saw a dogmatic approach to religion, all right? He was raised by a father and parents who were baptized and religious, and you've seen his time with his grandma in the show, and it's like she kept trying to push it on him, yet he had it at the 18th degree. So essentially, that pushing of that dogmatic religion or any systemized religion is actually one of the main components at the 18th degree, where everything just goes wrong. 18th degree is where illnesses occur. So if you count the 3rd house, which is the mind, okay, especially like it's like the right brain. Technically, you can call it right brain, left brain, because it is Gemini. It can shift between the two, between logic and feminine energy of creativity. So when you put the mind at the 18th degree, there's a literal mental illness that cannot be cured. So if anything, he was right about that. You know, like what was going on in his mind was never something to be cured. They didn't allow the brain to be researched, and they were like, well, some things are never to be found out, but we're going to do that today with astrology, right? So some of the other key stick out features is his mind. So now if I go to Gemini, if I go to his mind and his authority, his power. The sun is our authority, it's our power. So in Gemini, it is conjunct with what? A 6th degree orb, which is 1 degree outside of like over the top, but you see, obviously it didn't matter too much, right? So he has a 6th degree Mercury. So his authority, his power, sun sign, was in conjunction and harmony. It understood his mental processes, Gemini. So around the 8th house of death. But not only that, here's where things work, is in the 6th degree. So what are we saying? 6th degree is what we do every day. It's routines, it's rituals. So every day he was thinking about sex. Every day he was thinking about death. And he's trying to find new and curious ways. Okay, so now you have him creating zombies. He's lobotomizing people and pouring acid into their head. For him, this would be considered a new and curious way. Now, this junk is crazy, okay? I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm looking at the chart here. Now, there are a couple more standout things. In Nikola Stojanovic's theory, degree point theory, the 2nd degree is the degree of supreme power. So Michael Jordan has his Mercury in Aquarius, for example, at the 2nd degree. Mercury is the hands, or anything you play for sports with hands, and Michael Jordan had the best hands, right? He can shoot the ball, he was the best. Supreme power. The car for Ford in the US, Mercury was in the 2nd degree. When Ford, in a sense, was in Ford's chart, he had Mercury in the 2nd degree as well. Okay, he has supreme power. Ford's, I keep wanting to say Tom Ford, but that's like a freaking lyric. Ford, the car in the US, the T4 or something like that, I forget, was the first and the most powerful car in the US. You look at Queen Elizabeth, the 2nd degree, she has it all over, quite frankly. I believe in her son, and you look, and it's just like, look at the wildness of power. And they also had the 2nd degree of Mercury. So English, British, Queen Elizabeth, English became the #1 language in the world. So I just try to make a moment of how the 2nd degree in astrology is the degree of supreme power. And he has the 2nd degree in his Jupiter. I feel like it was somewhere else as well. And he also has it in his Chiron. So there's 2 places of supreme power. Now, in his Chiron, this is like the wounds. He has it in Pisces at the 2nd degree in the 5th house. 5th house is non-committal sex, right? So this is him out there dating. These are like, Lilith is one of the things that it may escape us and be repressed in younger ages. With a sign like, Pisces, it could have easily been religion. Okay, it could have easily been God. in his early mental status, like around that Taurus age, from about 2 to 6 years old, when his consciousness was forming, there was some sense of loss. Now, when you add the 8th house in the 2nd house, or 8th degree, 2nd degree, there's always a loss somewhere, especially when things are instinctually out of alignment. So whatever from 2 to 6 years old was out of alignment, and it didn't align with the instinctual version of, let's say, unconditional love, which Pisces is in its positive form. It's unconditional love. But let's say Jeffrey Dahmer not getting unconditional love, well, would then, the way his is at the 5th degree, his supreme power will be created through these non-committal sexual interactions, where it's also very fluid. So this can easily state why it's not women that he's addicted to. Other and beyond that, 8th house in Gemini, I have clients in 8th house in Geminis and multiple planets, and it's like, this can make a tremendously androgynous creature, somebody who doesn't identify with a gender, whether it's male or female. And I honestly do believe that in some capacity, like, this wasn't necessarily racially charged for Jeffrey Dahmer. And it's just a feeling. I'm not confirming that from his chart itself. I do know that there's some part of the narrative, and I say this as a black man, but I do not believe that that's so. But for this, interpretation is really not important. What I wanted to really permit is that the 2nd degree of supreme power, sex. He had power. He felt powerless, but in the moments he felt the most powerful was when the time he was dating, the time he's in the club, the time he's partying. 5th house, okay, at Lilith's and Pisces. So this is like party all night. Pisces is drugs, right? And so it's like with that Lilith there, what it was doing is, as well, you have to apply what is Pisces run by. It's run by Neptune or Jupiter. And so it's like in Neptune he has Scorpio. So it's like this fog, this illusion. The reason he would get blackout drunk, not only to just party, but in order to embrace the part of his ego self that experienced power, control, possessiveness over the next person. And a little bit of this happened because, if I look back at his Saturn for a moment, first off, he has Jupiter as well in the 2nd house. So I should have went more with that, because the traditional ruler of Pisces is Jupiter. So his Chiron has to basically adhere to his Jupiter back in his 2nd degree in the 3rd house. So his supreme power happened in his curious stages of learning back in Gemini about death with taxidermy with his father. So y'all kind of was able to see that within the movie itself, the Jeffrey Dahmer series, but it's showing evidently right here once again. Now, if I look at his Saturn, because I feel like this is important, Saturn is the position of time, right? Saturn is the position of time, but as a part of that, there's a certain unquenchable determination, no matter how long it took within Jeffrey Dahmer. It's like unquenchable determination he has at the 17th degree, and the 5th degree is one of Marilyn Monroe, and they leak and they bleed sex appeal, sex, the whole nine. The reason he never got caught is because of his Libra rising, right? He was so socially polished, where he knew how to not act up or how to not reveal hey, look, I'm a killer. He didn't feel creepy. It felt he was this naturally approachable person, and he naturally approached you. Why? Because he has his Mars. He has his Mars in Aries. So the actions that he was taking, right? He has it in the 8th degree again. So it's the actions that he were taking. He wasn't even Mars is an unconscious planet. He's not even entirely conscious. Okay, beyond the age of a 2-year-old. His actual actions, which are unconscious, he's at the age of a 2-year-old, and Aries is at home at Mars, but it is not very evolved. Okay, it's a very primitive energy. Aries is the tongue and the kundalini energy, and it's just the tongue of the snake, the tongue of the snake's head. So it's it can talk. This is what the tongue means. It's it can talk your panties off. And with the sociability of a Libra rising, okay, which again is owned by his Venus in his 22nd homicide degree. This is why death, even when he came across in a Jeffrey Dahmer documentary or so, even when he came across Tony, who he might have actually liked, he let him leave, even though he was so afraid of everyone leaving him. That possessiveness is coming from his Taurus and Venus, supremely possessive. His 8th house stellium, supremely possessive. And also what? Private. So you'll never know how privately possessive he was until you actually got into his home. And this is a part of, I mean, who knows about his parents, about what possession looked like? Because I don't think that was a main focus. But, I mean, it's leaking all over his chart. The reason why, as well, with the 19th degree, Libra is justice, Libra is the court system, as well as like Capricorn in their own ways. And it's like, you know, having his Jupiter and Saturn in that, it's like his reputation as a white man got him to not be looked at, quite frankly. His reputation as a white man, if anything, got him more protected, especially while he was living in a black neighborhood where the housing is so much lower, and you know, the amount of the average income that people were making, aka it was just all broke black people in the neighborhood. So it's like, if anything, he looks like the victim. And this is some part of that Lilith, all right? When it comes to like 5th house of dating or partying, it's like no one's really afraid of the white guy in the hood. And in reality, like, they should have been tremendously afraid of this guy, right? So that's the irony of, like, you know, social image, social status, when he has it in the traditions that his family has built, and where he actually, the means that they had. He didn't grow up poor, he didn't grow up broke. In fact, he didn't have to do much of anything from that financial standpoint. Like, he pretty much was blessed and gifted. So it's like, if I put him back in the hood now, you see that Libra rising and having his Venus, that's a very like natural beauty. It's like Venus is natural beauty, especially in Taurus. It's like it doesn't spark fear in somebody, but a Venus in Taurus can very, very clearly be perceptive of who outside of them they're looking at. They can dissect somebody in seconds, and they'd be like, nope, I don't fuck with him, or no, I don't. So this is why he knew what he liked. And when he decided what he liked, which in this instance was legit black gay men, right? Black homosexual men, he found he got fixated. And he only wanted to have sex with these people. Where there's a couple outliers. Listen, this is all levels of wild, sick. I just hope that I was able to help you understand some of these malefic degrees, 18 degrees, which he has, okay? Mental illnesses that cannot be cured. 22nd degree of homicide, which he did, okay? 8th degree of death and sex, which his whole life was full of it. You heard his 8th house and 8th degree everywhere, okay? And then and then the supreme power, which is another critical degree. 2nd degree is supreme power. It's like whatever area it's in, it is just God. And he has that God in astrology. It's like Pisces, like there's no higher God level that you can go. So it's like he had this. And you notice, like, when he decided what he wanted, it's like a bull. When he decides what it wants, it's not gonna change its mind. And you saw that within him early in the episode, and they were like, yo, you know, why are you buying us all these drinks, but you ain't really taking none of us home? You know, you about it or not? He was like, oh, don't you worry, I'm a man of action tonight. And that, from the beginning of the show and the Jeffrey Dahmer documentary, was absolutely terrifying. I was like, oh shit. That's immediately when I wanted to look at his chart, and I realized he has that Aries moon in the 19th degree again of relationships. So it's like, what does that mean? What does end in the 7th degree? What does that mean? It's like his narcissism came most alive, and in some ways he wasn't even positive of how confident and bold he really was. And at the end of the day, it's like, messing with these gay men, that was a turn on for them. His boldness was like, oh shit, like, come on daddy, like, take me home then, like, do something, do what you're gonna do. And he didn't even fully realize how confident he really was, how confident he seemed to the outside public eye, with his ability to be very deliberate in what he wanted, what he knew he needed, and he just went after it. So this dude was a legit monster, without a doubt, legit monster. Now, on a second disclaimer, I want to honest to God say, like, it's not okay. All right, he was guaranteed fame. I mean, it's just all over his chart, quite frankly. Fame, the 5th degree fames. 5th degree is fame, but 17th degree is like long-term fame, as well as like 29th degree, which is like the longest term of fame. And he has 2 planets in the 17th degree. Okay, he has another planet. He has a 5th house, right? But outside of that Capricorn and Jupiter, it's like at the 2nd degree, that's really where it hit. Jupiter expands anything it touches, and expanded his supreme power, okay, through his social image, partially as a white man. Honest to God, like, quite frankly, Only the fact that he was a white man did he get away. And this was 1960s. So we have to understand and take that into account. It's not 2022, even though it came out now. He was born in the 60s. 1960, he was born. So supreme power in that time frame was a white man. And that's why he got away with everything. And this is where the Supreme Court and the justice systems pretty much failed black people. It failed the black gay community. It was absolutely atrocious. Okay, everybody in this that did filming in this, they're gonna need therapy. You know, Evan Peters is gonna need therapy. That black woman who played the actress, she's gonna need therapy, because to step into the mind and body of legit a monster, like the show was called, like this, there's no way you're gonna make it out clean and pure. There's no way you're gonna make it out. You see the dude Tracy, the one guy that got away, you know, he hasn't been seen since like 2015, and he's become an extreme alcoholic, and he's just off the map, off the grid. These people are jacked up. You know, from what I understand, Netflix didn't necessarily pay the families everything that they really needed to make profits off of their pain and suffering, which a lot of eighth houses here, and it's like, you know, literally he's become famous for pain and suffering. His hedonism is having supreme power as a white man. None of this stuff is okay. And it shows very much and very clearly what's wrong with the U.S. in a lot of ways. So, you know, I told you I was going to try to stay objective in it, and I look to do that just so you can see it. But at the same time, like, I'm a very subjective person. Like, I have very deep feelings. And one of them is that this shit is wrong. We should not glorify him. All right? So this message is not a simple glorification. If anything, at bare minimum, is to help you understand and watch out for the signs. Watch out for these 18th degrees. Watch out for these 22nd degrees, okay? Because Venus is also Libra, which is what? Marriage. So it's like, if you have this in Venus and you're married to somebody, be careful. Understand, like, is there any hard squares coming? Not all squares are made the same. Not all sextiles, not all trines in astrology are made the same. Some are very lighter, some are very healthy, and some are just like big dick bad news, right? And so, you know, 7th house is one-on-one relationships. You know, he has that in his moon, 19th degree, one-on-one relationships. 7th house in the moon, one-on-one relationship. There's another 19th degree in his rising sign, in Libra, which is one-on-one relationships. Libra, one-on-one relationship. So a lot of these things for him were only one-on-one. If there was ever more public spotlight and people having an eye on him, he was not about it. All right, he was pretty much a private freak, nasty, disgusting, atrocious thing of a person, okay? But, you know, take what you take from this, and just be careful, you know? Cover your drinks when if you're at the club, you're out there partying. It's like, never leave your drink unattended. Like, this is basic rule 101. It's like, don't get yourself drugged up, all right? Don't get yourself snatched up. You know, I don't even mean funny with this, but like, hide your kids, hide your wives. You find somebody, be very mindful. If you see somebody has no flaws, you see somebody seems perfect on all edges, a lot like Jeffrey Dahmer did before he got them in his private space, it's like, you know, ask questions. Be concerned. No one has an entire clean rap sheet, and if they seem too perfect and too good to be true, I don't want to sit there and be a pessimist, but, you know, ask questions and don't be fucking stupid. So this is my interpretation, my breakdown of the Jeffrey Dahmer documentary Monster, and I hope you benefited from this somehow, some way. I hope you understand more about 8th house stelliums, more about these malefic degrees, more about the degree of power, 2nd degree, malefic degree, mental illness we can't cure, 18th degree, homicide, all right, and the degree point theory, 22nd degree. I love you, I thank you, I'll see you soon. Stay safe.